Welcome to another live reaction. This week we're moving on to the second week of the anime season, and Kimetsu no Yaiba we looked at the first week and it was perfectly fine. And here we are looking at the second week of it. Better late than never. I was going to do this a few days ago but didn't really get time, so without further ado, let's get started. Let's just take a look at the shot. Just want to start off with, that background looks really good and it's not CGI, it looks 2D to me. And it looks fairly more detailed than anything we've ever seen from this show. The backgrounds and settings so far in the show have been really good. So they've done a really good job with it. And for the setting, it's something that's probably you should do, because to take maximum advantage of it, you probably want to make more detailed backgrounds like this. So good job, show. The effects on this sword are pretty insane, let me just say. Like, we haven't seen any of it in the show yet, but so far, just looking at it looks crazy. Just want to point out how good the character designs in this show are, again, because even though we've only seen this guy and his sister so far, the guy in the orange who we see in the OP, as well as the other villains and everyone else, just looks just amazing right off the bat, right? And this is based on something that they probably took from the manga, but it's just an amazing looking show character-wise, not even to mention the art and everything else that we've already talked about before. Not only is it cool that we get to see him just carry around his sister in a basket, which is like maybe one of the dumbest ideas that you could have possibly, but it's just cool to see that he made a basket with that bamboo and stuff, and they showed us him making it, which is more important than the vehicle of how he carries around in itself, because the basket just represents his resourcefulness, which we've already seen in episode 2, so they're reinforcing that, which is good. He's treating her like a pet so far, and she hasn't talked yet. In the first episode, I commented on how I would like to see her become more of a character than that. It seems like that's not going to happen anytime soon. Maybe that'll be her character arc for the season or something like that. But I just think that if she was more actively participating in the story, it would make for a better character. But that need not necessarily be how they go, because if you look at his story arc, it's taking care of her and finding a way to turn her back, right? I just think that, like in Fullmetal Alchemist, which is the comparison I made earlier, that if she's an active participant, at some point we get to learn her feelings about the situation. It just adds to the story in general. But even if it doesn't go that way, it's still a good idea to have him carry her around, because redemption arcs is kind of like the bread and butter of shonen shows in general. This is our first look at a real demon. His sister is a demon, but like, she didn't really kill anybody, we don't think. So this is the first time we've ever seen a real demon, and he just starts talking right off the bat. So we're not going to be fighting monsters here, it seems. They're at least monstrous people who can speak, at least, which is good, I guess. It might seem like she's crying, but it looks to me like she's watering at the mouth, which is very creepy. But she is a demon, so that's understandable. That's that camera movement that we use CGI for. Interesting to note that it looks like the demon may or may not be CGI, but I don't think she is. But that's the kind of like sweeping camera movement that Ufotable have been known for whenever they do use CGI. Like in Fate Zero, Fate Stay Night, if you think of those like epic fight scenes, they have a lot of that like dynamic camera movement. That's what you're looking for in a CGI show, because there's no other reason to use it other than like fluid, expressive animation and dynamic camera movements. And it's cheaper to some extent. She just kicks his head off. I mean, good animation on the head just flying away, but that's kind of funny, right? The first demon that you see in the show, and his little sister just kicks his head off. His head grew legs. What? In the grand tradition of shonen protagonists headbutting other people because their head is so dense. This is just a nice little inside joke. If you know any shonen, you know that at some point they've headbutted somebody and their head is just super dense because there's nothing else inside, It's like an inside joke, I guess. Did he just dive off a cliff? That seems like a really bad idea. I don't know why he thought this was a good idea, but his sister didn't die yet. She's a demon. So presumably she can survive the same way this guy did. So I don't know why he did this. Is he dead now? How do we tell that he's dead? Because he got his head cut off, he was fine. Do you have to burn them or something? We haven't really been told how to kill demons yet. I guess he is dead. I guess you have to crush their spine? I don't know. I'm so unclear on that. I like that this is this moral dilemma, right? Because in most shows where we see like undead creatures, the killing act is usually like a stake through the heart, or like chopping off the head, or like in Walking Dead they just cut the heads off, or something like that, and they don't function anymore. In zombie movies in general that's the case, but this guy's like, I'm gonna have to pound this demon's head in repeatedly to make this happen, which is like a brutal thing which you don't really associate with zombie movies, right? Zombies are like these undead, disposable creatures. You just want to get rid of them. But he's thinking of it as like an actual living thing, which it kind of is, right? I guess the son solved his problem for him, but it's important that we saw his indecision in the first place. And as the Goblin Mask guy retorted, like, there's no room for like moral kindness in this kind of a world, right? Another thing that kind of confused me, if the demons don't come out at night, or only come out at night, why don't you just travel during the day? You have this basket. Granted, it'll be uncomfortable, but you could find some place to rest for the nighttime, and then have her sleep through the day or something like that. That seems like the easier way to do this, just because you won't have to deal with the demons. But yeah, who knows? This is really like the question of the series, right? He's keeping her around because she's a demon, but her mouth was watering when she saw that demon blood. I mean, human blood. We don't really know. I'm assuming at some point in the series this will be explored. I'm curious to see what his reaction will be. I know it's going to be more nuanced than do I just kill her or not, because that's not really an option for him, right? But this is really the best question for this guy to ask at this point, and the most interesting one. So the Goblin Mask guy lays down like the conditions of him allowing him to travel with his sister, right? And it seems like he's speaking from experience, or he's met other people who have done this kind of thing before, because I guess it's not that uncommon to have a relative or someone get attacked and be converted into a demon. So he's like laying out the ground rules, like, hey, it's okay that you're doing this, but like, she's not any different than any other demon. You still have to do what needs to be done if the worst was to happen, right? And I'm interested to see what kind of sensei this Goblin Mask guy will become, because there's a few tropes of wise old men in anime, so I want to see what line this guy will fall along. I really like those two shots. I'm glad they're doing this in CG, because I don't think you could do this well traditionally, because they move the camera around a bunch. I'm sure there is a way you could do this in 2D. It's not like it's impossible or anything like that, but just it's easier to do when you have 3D helping you. And this is one of those great shots that you like to see. It's kind of funny that the Demon Slayer core only wants you to have great cardio. Like, there's no other requirement. You need to have quiet footsteps and great cardio, and that's it. He thinks it's easy, but it's nighttime now, and we know what happens at nighttime, right? This might be the best way to visualize smell I've seen since Food Wars. This is a pretty unique power this dude has, and they choose to use it in some interesting ways. So it's definitely not like your run-of-the-mill, like Chosen One type narrative. Ooh, that was pretty rough. I like how he does mention that it is something that he can't just avoid just by being cool or whatever, just because he can smell them, but that animation model was pretty rough. Oh, so that's where it connects. This guy has a good sense of smell too, which is important, I guess, because that's why he can teach him, because they have the same power. Is this like an important power to have when hunting demons? I don't know. I just noticed that every main character in the show has a different colored like robe thing, and all the main all the side characters just have plain brown ones. Usually it's hair that distinguishes them, but this is like very flamboyant apparel. I don't know what the in-world explanation for that is. I guess the main characters just have to be differentiated somehow. I mean, I'm cool with it. It looks nice, but I don't know how you explain that away. That was episode 2. I don't really know what else to say other than that. They're really expanding on the setup they had laid down in episode 1. They told us like he's not that good at killing demons, which is good to know, because that's something he's going to want to get better at as they go on in the series. His sister, they kind of like explored the relationship that they have a little bit more, and like why he's so motivated to try and turn her back into a human. as well as introducing us to this teacher character who we hadn't seen before and who we are told has the same sense of smell as him, which we thought was like a unique characteristic that he had, but it's actually probably better for his own sake that he has a teacher that can teach him how to use that properly to hunt demons, right? We already knew he was resourceful. We saw him build that basket. He managed to avoid those traps just by learning how they smelled as opposed to the surroundings, which again shows us that he's smart. And this is probably one of the most interesting things about this show, is that this is really evidence of like, over the years, the shonen protagonist, the base level that they start at has really kind of leveled up. Because if you compare this to like My Hero Academia, both of these characters, they start off at like this level where they're just like, their distinguishing characteristic is that they're resourceful and they like use the few powers that they have to their maximum advantage, right? He only has a sense of smell and he like knows how to make things. So we're curious about how he's going to use that to achieve his ultimate goal. Whereas with the shonen protagonists of the previous era, it was more like you have this hidden power that you have to find a way to unleash, right? Which Midoriya also has to some extent, but he was only able to gain that because of his innate like natural characteristics, whereas Naruto just had the like QB from day one, and even if he had done not that much with it, he would still have had a higher floor than most other ninja just because of where he started off at. And maybe Naruto's not the best way to explain this, but like the shonen characters we see these days, like if you look at this season and the past season, they start off just by having like a base level power, like a very low level power, and they eventually develop it over the years, but they start off by wanting to like use their resourcefulness more than anything. And I think that's a good transition that we've made, because I think that story is just inherently more interesting than just pushing up a number on a power reader. Not that I have any problem with that. Those are some of my favorite shows too, but it's just a more interesting story in my opinion. So that was episode 2. Looking forward to episode 3. I hope we get to see that cool effect sword at some point, because that's probably one of the coolest animated effects I've seen ever. I just want to see that in action, and I don't know when we're going to meet the orange-robed, yellow-haired kid. At some point we run into him too, I assume. Maybe he's another Demon Slayer person. It's good that there is a Demon Slayer core in the first place, because without it, I'm just going to guess the demons would just run rampant in the countryside. But other than that, not much else to say about this episode. The use of CG and 2D, the combination isn't quite on the level of a show like Carol and Tuesday, where I just felt like it was completely next level with how they used it. And there were a few cuts here and there which felt a little bit janky, but I think over the course of the show, I think that'll get ironed out. But really, I think they're using it for the more intense action sequences. So for maybe like the finale or like the end of this season, when they really want to ramp up the action, they'll probably invest more budget and time into those cuts. But for episode 2, I thought the cuts were pretty good. The character designs, as always, are really good. And I think they're going to sell a lot of merchandise of these characters just because they're so distinct and they look so different from everything else on the market. Not really much else to say other than that. So thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll see you in the next episode.